the Department of Labour, Treasury, former ACC Minister Marion Street and former Finance Minister Michael Cullen.
Supplementary.
Craig Foss.
Supplementary to the Minister. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Craig Foss.
According to the report, how long did previous government ministers know about the shortfall?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, evidence presented in the report shows that on the 14th of April 2008, the chairperson of the ACC board met with the Minister of Finance to discuss the issue of non-earners account funding. On the 22nd of April 2008, an ACC board paper warned the Department of Labour that they will need to look carefully, given we are anticipating a significant deficit next year. That deficit, which does require the government to put in $300 million before the end of this financial year to keep the account going, has now grown to $384 million.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker.
David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, to the Minister. Has the Minister seen reports from the Treasury accepting responsibility for this error? Does he accept that admission? And does he accept the report's finding that the information not being disclosed at the PREFU can be attributed to Treasury's interpretation of the Public Finance Act? Does he further accept that, as at the October PREFU, the Department of Labour had also failed to provide ministers with a recommendation on whether or not to accept the ACC's numbers?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, yes, I do accept that Treasury have admitted their part in this debacle by acknowledging
David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, I am concerned that the Minister is misrepresenting the Treasury. I have a copy of their press release.
Order. Now, the member is an experienced member. That is not a point of order, and the House does not have to suffer that behaviour.
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I accept order. Mr Speaker, I accept Treasury has taken responsibility for the error that they made in not bringing this not including this in the pre-election update. However, the pre-election update is signed by the government, and the government knew 6 months before the election that there would be a significant shortfall in the non-earners account, which is the ACC account that provides for the care of the most vulnerable New Zealanders, and the government didn't care enough to fix the problem or tell the public.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, does the Minister agree that if any adverse finding against either minister had been proposed by the experienced independent reviewers at Martin Jenkins, natural justice would have required them to discuss that with the minister's concern? And as no consultation with either minister, no interview and no AA requests were granted, does he now accept that both ministers must have been exonerated by the independent review?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, what the paper trail shows is that ACC was regarded as a political plaything by the Labor government, that they actively worked to hide deteriorating performance in ACC, with the effect that the incoming government now has to find $384 million before the 30th of June and a further $1.2 billion over the next 3 years to fill the hole that they left and that they hid.
The Honourable Sir Roger Douglas.
Mr Speaker, does the Minister intend to refer the former Minister of Finance and Treasury to the police for what can only be described as a blatant breach of the Public Finance Act? And if not, why?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker.
Bill English.
Mr Speaker, it is clear now that this $384 million should have appeared in the pre-election update. However, I would have to say that the issues with ACC are now so significant, where the liability is growing rapidly, and it has now been revealed that ACC's performance has been deteriorating significantly for the last 3 or 4 years, and that is much more important than a theoretical constitutional discussion about whether previous ministers can be prosecuted.
The Honourable Sir Roger Douglas.
Mr Speaker, how, given the $9 billion growth in ACC liabilities to 2009 and the increase in employers' premiums of over 50%, can the government not take action?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, the government will be taking action because we must correct quite quickly the debacle that was the stewardship of the Labor government of ACC. Liabilities are blowing out. Rehabilitation rates are dropping. Claims costs are out of control, and levies are going through the roof unless we make significant changes.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Well, will the newfound acolyte for the former minister, Mr Douglas, confirm...
Questions should be framed a little more carefully than that, the Honourable Member knows. Please start again.
Right. Will the minister confirm that the real reason this political charade is going on is because he is softening ACC up for privatisation on the grounds of an international equity slide that's affected every international institution?
Point of order, the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, even with all that theatrical sort of addition, there was no question from the minister. No, there wasn't. No, there wasn't. So you cannot have a question, should not have a supposition in it. Mr Speaker, I just ask you to get the Speaker to ask simply a question.
Speaking of order,
Mr Speaker, I think this could actually be described as the triumph of the will. The question started with the word will.
I noted that myself. The member will repeat his question, please. The Honourable David Cunliffe.
To the minister. Will the minister confirm that the real reason for this political charade is that he is softening ACC up for privatisation on the back of an international equity slide that has affected every comparable institution?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I wish that the facts presented to the new government weren't true, but unfortunately it is the case that between now and the 30th of June, this government has to find $384 million to put into the non-earners account, because if we don't, ACC will be unable to pay for the care of the most vulnerable people in our community. And this record shows that as early as the 18th of April and as late as the 15th of August in 2008, ministers knew exactly what the problem was.
Mr Speaker, I anticipate that you already know what the point of order is. The member has not sought to address the question of privatisation. He is simply rereading elements from the report, telling us what everybody knows, sir, which is that the markets are down.
The question was a somewhat political question. It got a somewhat